Families can be driven apart for all manner of reasons.
I had no information at all about where my mum went.
And when you do lose touch with your loved ones,
you don't know who you are, where have you come from.
Finding them can take a lifetime.
I might have a brother that's still living here.
Especially when they could be anywhere, at home or abroad. And that's where the Family Finders come in. From international organisations...
Hi, it's the Salvation Army Family Tracing Service.
...to genealogy detective agencies.
For someone to say that it's changed their life, it makes coming to work, you know, really, really special.
And dedicated one-man bands.
It's a matter of how much effort you really want to put into it, how badly you want to solve the problem.
They hunt through history to bring families back together again.
Finding new family is wonderful.
In this series, we follow the work of the Family Finders.
Suddenly you get that one spark of breakthrough, and there they are.
Learning the tricks they use to track missing relatives through time.
I didn't think I'd ever find sisters, but I have.
And meeting the people whose lives they change along the way.
I've been waiting to meet John my whole life.
Since we've met, I feel part of a family again.
You just completed my life for me.
Every year, thousands of people across the UK set about searching for long-lost family members. No two searches are ever quite the same. Often a search will throw up unexpected results. And it can take something completely unexpected for a search to succeed. Today, we hear how a boy adopted as a baby finally found family to call his own.
I had a tap on the shoulder, and there they were. That was something else.
And we meet two sisters who spent 50 years apart and led completely different lives.
I was absolutely fascinated by meeting someone that looked so much like me.
In the post-war years, despite the social stigma, babies being born to unmarried mothers was on the increase. So were family secrets and cover-ups. Often the truth never came out, and in the case of Rob Skinner, it took over 50 years to unravel the real story behind his birth. Rob was born in Croydon in 1943.
The family didn't have much in the way of money. I lived on a council estate. Nice three-bedroom house. My two sisters were older than me. June was 12 years, Kath 15 years older. My father left my mother when I was about 3 years of age.
A few years after his dad left, Rob's mum started a long-term relationship with a man Rob affectionately referred to as Uncle Albert, and the family began taking in foster children.
We had a succession of foster children, boys and girls. We never had much money, but we did enjoy life. I guess I was a very contented child. You made your own fun, just doing what boys did in those days.
Contented family life in the Skinner household continued until at the age of 16, a shocking revelation was to change Rob's life forever.
I left school and my prospective employer wanted to see my birth certificate. I can vividly remember Ma looking for the certificate, and whilst she was doing so, called out to me, "Of course you realise you were adopted." Oh, no, I didn't. This was the first intimation that I'd had, and I was taken aback a bit.
Despite the fact that he'd grown up in an ever-changing household of foster children, until now, Rob had no clue that the woman he'd grown up calling Mum wasn't in fact related to him.
I just thought that I was perhaps a little different. I'd seen foster brothers and sisters come along and go. I always assumed that I was the real deal. And something that I did shows me that I wasn't particularly happy with the state of affairs. After presenting it to my employer as evidence, I then tore up the certificate and had it replaced by a shortened version that didn't show the word adopted.
Rob put the adoption shock behind him and got on with his life. He went on to become an insurance salesman, met Brenda, married, and had 3 children.
There were times when I wondered who my mother and father might be, but I never, ever asked Ma for detail. The main reason why I wasn't curious about my blood mother and father was because I was, I guess, supremely happy with where I was and didn't want to rock the boat.
But in 2009, a serious health scare made Rob reevaluate.
I had a reasonably serious heart problem that was resolved with open heart surgery. The number of times I was asked about medical history, family medical history, I was unable to give them an answer, but now perhaps I thought would be a good time to find out.
By now, Rob's adoptive mother had died, and he felt free to explore his origins.
My son Harvey's partner was very interested in genealogy, and that encouraged me to start looking into the subject and do some research. This is the adoption order that shows my mother's name, Pauline Blanche Turner, an unusual name, and that she came down to Croydon to give birth to me in what used to be known as a home for unmarried mothers. The search was basically for Pauline Blanche, and it being such an unusual name, the match was made in a very straightforward manner.
Rob soon discovered that he wasn't alone in his online search for information on his birth mother.
Our initial contact proved that somebody was looking for relatives of Pauline Blanche Turner, which was a positive sign.
Rob's daughter-in-law acted quickly and composed a message.
I opened the email. It's very sensitively written. I'm aware that this may be a delicate subject. His father, Robin, was born in April 1943 to a Pauline Blanche Turner. He was not aware that he was adopted until he needed his birth certificate. There's only one Pauline Blanche Turner on the website, and that's my mother.
After an agonising wait, Rob received the response he was hoping for.
On the 24th of January, we had an email from Martin, who identified himself as the son of Pauline. I will be very willing to help you in any way with information, and I've been trying to find Robin for the previous 7 years after talking to my mother about him. With best wishes, Martin. That, indeed, was the eureka moment when we knew we had family.
After many years of searching for his birth mother, Rob had stumbled across a real-life blood brother. But there was more to come.
It appears that we have a man who was jilted.
It's really intriguing because it's just not the story that we've been following, is it, all these years?
Families can be separated by death, divorce, war, any number of reasons. Meaning siblings can find themselves on completely different life paths. Sue DeHaven was born to a single mother in 1960.
I was born in Salvation Army Hospital in Bristol. After I was born, my birth mother experienced quite a lot of health problems, so I wasn't able to be with her consistently.
Sue never knew her father, and soon after her birth, her mother met a new partner.
She married in 1961, approximately a year after I was born, and had another daughter called Eileen, who was 17 months younger than me. After Eileen was born, we were both with our mother for a short period of time, until, unfortunately, she wasn't well, and we both went into care into Downend Babies Home.
Eileen was discharged from the baby home and went to live with her dad. Sue remained and was taken under the wing of a young nurse called Dilys Jenkins, who worked at the children's home.
Dilys spent a lot of time with me because that was the area or the house that she was working in. She was allowed to take me home at weekends as part of her NNEB training final papers.
In the 1960s, nursery nursing became a popular career choice for women. The newly founded NHS was going from strength to strength, and the NNEB, or National Nursery Examination Board course, was highly respected and internationally recognised. It had entry requirements, and competition for places was tough, but the women who qualified could enjoy jobs for life in both public and private sectors, or at least until they married and settled down to have families. It was whilst Dilys was studying for her NNEB that baby Sue was entrusted to her care, and the young nurse began taking her to stay at her parents' family home in Chippenham.
She took me home to her parents, and they immediately fell in love with me, and I started to go there for weekends regularly. I used to cry and scream and make an awful fuss when I had to go back to the children's home. On a visit in early 1963, whilst visiting Chippenham with Dilys, we had the worst snow in the West Country for a lot of years, and we were snowed in for 3 months. During that time, Dilys and her parents decided there was no way that they ever wanted to part with me again, and they sought to adopt me. My adoptive parents would have liked to have fostered both Eileen and I, but unfortunately, they really didn't have the choice as whether they could have fostered both of us or adopted both of us even.
Eileen remained in the care of her biological father, while her sister Sue had a happy childhood with Dilys and her parents in Chippenham.
My life growing up with Dilys's family and my mum and dad and my other sister, Frances, was very special. As a child, I don't think I really absorbed what was happening very much and didn't really think about Eileen at all at that stage. I just assumed that she was happy with her own family.
Despite a contented childhood in the care of her adoptive parents, Sue never forgot her birth family.
I absolutely adored my mum and dad, but it doesn't take away that curiosity, I suppose, of wanting to know your natural roots. Not having any blood relatives that I knew of then always made me feel quite alone inside.
It wasn't until years later, when her adoptive mum and dad had died, that Sue decided the time was right to do some digging.
When my adopted mum died, I felt suddenly like I had permission to find out a bit more about my birth family, because I didn't ever want my adoptive parents to think that they weren't good enough and that they weren't everything to me, because they were.
With the desire to find blood relatives ignited, Sue decided to trace her half-sister Eileen.
I started looking online to try and build my family tree from ancestral sites, and it was more complex than I first realised.
After a time-consuming search and several dead ends, Sue's hunt had brought her no closer to finding her sister Eileen, and reluctantly she gave up. She may have given up on her search, but the search hadn't given up on Sue. Little did she know, just 20 miles away, someone else was intent on doing some family finding of their own.
I feel a bit like jealous, because you had a really lovely upbringing, and do you know what I mean? And that's, when I sort of say I feel a bit jealous when I see all this.
In Croydon, Rob Skinner had been trying to find his birth family after finding out he'd been adopted during the war. A genealogy website had revealed that he wasn't the only one to be researching his natural mother, Pauline Blanche Turner, and any living relatives.
Somebody was looking for relatives of Pauline Blanche Turner, which was a positive sign.
Rob had made contact with the mystery person and discovered it was in fact a brother, Martin, who he'd never known existed.
Rob actually phoned up my flat, and I was listening to his voice, how he spoke, looking for similarities. Who did he sound like? Wondered what he looked like. It's like an experience you've never experienced before. It's like something you've always wanted, and then you get it. It's overwhelming, and you're thinking, you know, say the right things and ask the right questions.
Twins, Martin and Sue, were born to Pauline Blanche Turner and her second husband and grew up in Harpenden.
Our childhood was really happy. There was our natural father and mother and our older sister, and it was just really...
It was a happy time. Yeah, it was a happy time.
But unfortunately, their parents' marriage broke down, after which Pauline married again, had another baby and relocated the family northwards.
My mum was very headstrong, quite fiery temper. I don't think she was strict. She wasn't strict.
Cuddles, kisses, very homely.
Always baking, always cooking.
Believed that the home was somewhere where everyone chipped in, so... Oh,
yeah.
You know...
We all had to pull our weight, all had our chores.
Growing up, young Martin and Sue were completely unaware that their mother had had a baby from a previous relationship, who she had given up for adoption. But as they got older, Pauline decided to share her secret with her children.
I can remember being told about Rob when around about the age of 14. Mum just said that she'd had another child, but she was only young, and she had him adopted when he was 6 months old, and I asked her why, and she just said because her mother, my grandmother, had told her to.
It must have been difficult for her, but it wasn't something that was hidden or taboo. I think it was personal.
I think things were different in those days. She was only 17.
It's a lot different. There was no support, and it must have been horrendous. And I suppose she thought she was doing the best by giving Rob another chance.
He was 6 months old, wasn't he?
So it must have been worse, because she must have, you know, bonded, and just can't imagine. That's probably why she didn't talk about it.
The version of events their mother told them was all they ever knew about the circumstances surrounding Rob's birth.
We were told that his father had been killed in the war. He was American, his father, and that's why Mum...
She married his best friend to give the baby a father, but when they were due to return back to America, she didn't want to leave England. He went back and she stayed here. My mother was by herself. She had Rob adopted, and she returned to the village where her parents lived and started afresh.
In 2005, Martin and Sue's mother, Pauline, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and moved into a care home. It was here she began to express regret about never having traced her firstborn son, Rob.
She must have been thinking about him too, because she instigated the conversation.
With his mother's health failing, Martin was determined to track down his half-brother.
I started the tree, and I always thought that Rob was part of that. A tree is supposed to be representative of real life, so I just wanted him to be represented on the tree with all the rest of the family. He was part of the family.
But despite searching for years, Martin had no success.
When my mum was in the nursing home, she did always ask me about Rob, and then one day she asked me if I'd managed to find him, and she was talking about him, just saying that she would like to have seen him. It's just those last years in the care home, you know, just the way she looked at me. Like she was really hoping, and she's hoping I'd found something, and you know, just never happened. She'd asked, you know, I think she was hopeful when she said, "Have you found him? Have you found Robin yet?" Because she called him Robin. And I just said no. I just felt like I'd let her down.
Don't be silly, you hadn't let her down.
Yeah, but it would have been nice.
Would have been.
Pauline died without ever being reunited with a son she had been forced to give up. But just a year later, the email arrived that was to finally bring the siblings together.
From when we first started our search to physically meeting with Martin and Sue took probably no longer than 3 to 4 months.
The brothers arranged to meet in London at Victoria Station.
I can remember literally being on the train with Brenda going up to London, her asking me, "How do you feel? Are you excited?" And I said, "Well, in truth, not yet."
As we got towards Victoria, that's when I started to be... I got very deep and I was not worried, but I thought, well, what if it doesn't work out, and what if we've got nothing in common? And Susan was all excited, so I just phoned him, and I saw someone reaching for the phone, so we just went, I turned the phone off, we went and stood in front of them.
I had a tap on the shoulder, and there they were. That was something else. It's difficult. I find it impossible to put into words.
I couldn't stop looking at him when we met him. Rob is just the image. He's more like Mum than anybody, isn't he? Than any of us. He's so like her to look at.
We talked a lot about my mother, what she did, what she was like, a little bit about the relationship that she'd had that brought me into the world. We covered a lot of ground that evening, and it was a remarkable experience.
Since their initial meeting, the siblings have been making up for lost time. Today, Rob is heading to Cheshire to see the twins again, and he's come armed with some more intriguing family research.
I'm particularly looking forward to today because it's some time since Martin, Sue and I have got together, and within the past couple of months I've discovered some information about Mum that I think both Martin and Sue will find very interesting indeed.
It'd be nice to see Rob again, because it's been a long time.
Yeah, really good. It's been a year, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Catch up.
Yeah.
Give him this. Well, I hope he likes it. I like it.
Oh, I'm sure he will.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
You all right?
Been a long time.
It has.
Martin. Oh, it's lovely to see you. You all right?
Yeah.
Should we go in?
Yeah.
Martin has brought along a special gift for Rob, something he hopes will help bring him closer to the family he never knew.
Whoa. That is brilliant.
That's one you haven't got, that's Mum. That was taken about the time you were born. That's her mother, our grandmother, and that was taken about 1920. That is her mother, so that's your great-grandmother.
She's a cracker, isn't she?
Yeah, that was, I think that was probably taken about 1890, judging by the way she's dressed. I thought that was nice because it's your direct line, and perhaps...
Absolutely brilliant, thanks.
I just thought that'd be nice for you to have.
Yeah.
Since being united with Martin and Sue, Rob has been trying to find out more about his natural father. The story their mother gave the twins was that he died during the war. However, Rob's research has dug up two incredible revelations.
We often wondered why the relationship between our mum and my dad didn't materialise, but we never did get an answer on that. What we do have are some letters that Dad wrote home to initially his cousin. And so what we do have here are letters. They've stood the test of time. So we see one there in February 43, one for you, Martin, 12th of June, and there's some particular significance in that date. You may remember.
That was when wasn't she getting married?
We have Mum's wedding certificate, which showed that she was actually getting married on that very same day.
This gets stranger and stranger.
Yes. And on that very day, my dad was writing home to his cousin saying that he still hoped to marry Mum.
Martin and Sue had been told by their mother that she hadn't married Rob's father because he was killed in active service.
From what I can see, the letters, they obviously only show one side of the story. And it appears that we have a man who was jilted.
Oh.
But we don't know why. And as I say, that is just one side of the story.
It's really intriguing because it's just not the story that we've been following, is it, all these years?
On top of the conflicting tales over why his parents' relationship didn't result in marriage, Rob has made a far bigger discovery.
The information that the father had died during the war, we were unable to substantiate that, and indeed subsequently we found that the father had lived for another 60 years. He did in fact live until 2003.
Now I think Martin looks like you as a little boy there. There's photos of you that you've given us, and I think you look alike there.
Tragically, Rob missed out on a reunion with both his natural parents. But Martin and Sue are determined to make Rob feel part of the family and have brought him to a special place that has played a big part in their lives.
Rob, our gran used to come here every Sunday. This was her church that she used to come to. This church means a lot to us because we've had a lot of important family events here. I got married here. One of our daughters got married here. Mum was obviously had a funeral here.
The reason why we wanted to bring you here today is because we've decided that we want to put Mum's ashes somewhere, so we're thinking of having them interred here, so that we've got somewhere to go to on birthdays, etc., and to leave flowers, and just somewhere important where we can come to, where my mum is. I just wanted to share that with you and let you know what we're going to be doing.
I think that's a nice idea, Martin. And, you know, I'm pleased to have an input into one of the family events.
It's lovely having Rob in our family because he just fits in. He's one of us, and I've got two brothers now instead of one.
He's always been there, but now we've got him in person, so it's just completion, really.
I deferred looking for my family, my mother in particular, for about 50 years. And today somehow seems to be, in a way, the end of that journey. But in a sense, it's the beginning of something new. And now is the time to actually enjoy these relatives.
In Wiltshire, Sue de Haven had hit a brick wall and had given up searching for her baby sister, Eileen, who she'd become separated from 50 years earlier.
In 1962, Eileen went to her father, and I was already, by then, being fostered in Chippenham.
But unbeknownst to Sue, a mere 20 miles away, the very same sister she'd been trying to find had been searching for her too.
Out of the blue, I received a message from Eileen's daughter on a social media site saying that her mum had been looking for me. I was really shocked because I'd been trying to find Eileen for quite a long time and not realising that she was using her maiden name.
So after years of trying and failing to find Eileen, Eileen had finally found Sue. And the sisters were back in touch after 50 long years apart.
When Eileen and I discovered each other, it was, I think we were both a little bit cautious about what it might mean to the other. I was aware that her life had been checkered by spells of going into care, getting into trouble.
Eileen had been born 17 months after Sue in 1962, but their mother became unable to cope and both sisters ended up in a children's home.
I can't really remember much of when I was really little. I can just remember probably when I was about 2 or 3, and that was going to Swindon to live with my dad.
Eileen's father gained custody and removed her from the home before also trying to get custody of Sue.
When we were children, we actually went down to Chippenham, to Sue's house. I can't remember all of it, but I can remember going to Chippenham with our dad. I think what I was told is that our dad and that went down to try to get Sue.
But Eileen's dad wasn't Sue's biological father, and strong opposition from Sue's adoptive parents meant that she remained in Chippenham with them.
And then I turned into quite an angry young teenager. I was sleeping rough, like I say, I was drinking. So I was like thinking, I really wonder how Sue's life, has she got an happier life than me? I think it was just sad that we didn't grow up together, being that we come from the same mother, because I think we would have had a good bond, because most children that come from the same mother normally have quite a strong bond, and I felt like we were cheated because that was taken away from us.
Eileen eventually married and went on to have children of her own. And it wasn't until her 50th birthday that she decided it was time to try to find the sister she'd lost.
I started to want to trace, like, my natural mother and Sue. Some of it was curiosity. Some of it was looking for something that I felt that I had missing, especially that was with my natural mother. Some of it was because I wanted to see how Sue's upbringing was. I think because my children had grown up, and I sort of thought, actually, I'm going to start doing a little bit more of a search. When I was on Job Seekers, they got me to do an internet course, like use the laptop and computer, and while using the laptop, apart from just doing job searches, I thought, right, I'm now going to start doing things that I want to do with it. So the first thing I'd done is went on to Genes Reunited.
After having no luck finding Sue on genealogy sites, it was Eileen's daughter who suggested she turn to social media for help.
My daughter took Sue's name and went onto Facebook and done a search for me, and there was a few Sues with that name, but straight away she come across the one that she said, this is your sister, Mum. This is her. A few days later, I set up my own Facebook account, sent Sue a message from my Facebook account, and she then sent me a long message back saying that she had been looking for me for a long time. Hi Eileen, it was a lovely surprise to see you've joined Facebook. I do hope we keep in regular contact now, because I would love to know how you and your family are doing. Anyway, do message me when you can. Take care, stay happy, love, Sue. I was like shaking, thinking, my God, what have, what have we done? We've just found each other after all these years.
The sisters were soon speaking on the phone.
We just couldn't stop talking. It was like we'd known each other for all the time. There was so much to talk about. We was on the phone for about 4 hours.
Sue and Eileen then arranged their first meeting at Swindon train station.
As we got to Swindon, I saw a woman sitting, waiting for the train to come in, who I thought looked remarkably like me. And I got off the train and we had quite an emotional big hug.
When I first saw her, I knew it was her straight away, and she said to me that she knew it was me straight away. And obviously we'd give each other a big hug and we cried and we just chatted. It was just like amazing. It was just like, I can't believe this has really happened. After all these years, it's like, I really can't believe it.
I think it's fair to say that I couldn't take my eyes off of her. I was absolutely fascinated by meeting someone that looked so much like me. I wanted to ask her about everything all at once, and in fact I think it probably came out like that. You know, one question followed by another, where she lived, where she worked, you know, even down to, you know, what clothes she liked to wear, everything. Everything about her was fascinating. We went and had lunch together, and the whole time I think I was looking at her with my mouth open, trying to take in every single aspect of her. We asked a stranger to take some photographs of us, and when I got those photos developed, it showed even more how much alike we were, and that no matter how it might have been 50+ years since we'd seen each other last, but we had a lot of characteristics in common, which I found extraordinary.
She was quite sad that I had it quite hard over the years, not just children, obviously, even as adult years, different relationships and things like that had gone wrong. So, and I wasn't working, and I hadn't worked for a long time. I was, you know, I was like, oh, you know, I'm really glad you had a great life, really, and everything.
We both knew that our life experiences had been quite different, quite diverse, and It's a difficult one because I didn't want her to feel that I was in any way rubbing in that I'd had quite a successful, happy life since my adoption.
It feels the missing gap because I think it's also because she's related to our natural mother. We're both come from the same mother. And even though I love all my other brothers and sisters just as much, there's a different feeling there because we're from the same mother.
We've become closer and closer, and I feel like I've got my little sister back. My first experience of having a little sister.
Today, the two sisters are meeting again, and this time a special guest has been invited along too. Dilys is the nurse who was charged with looking after Sue in the children's home where both sisters lived all those years ago.
This is the first picture I've got of me with Dilys.
Yeah.
And
Was that me? I thought that was my mum.
No, that is you.
It was Dilys's parents who ended up adopting and raising Sue.
Well, look, Eileen, if it hadn't have snowed then, I probably would never, it would never have turned out the way in which it did, because I think I would probably have gone back to the nursery home, and, you know, we may well have still been together now.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, that's certainly what changed my life.
The snow.
With the snow,
yeah. I haven't got as many photos as you, but I have got a couple.
Crikey. No, that's really funny. What age were you there?
I was probably about 19.
Yeah. I notice your hair and my hair always seems to part in the same little place.
Yeah.
And it's still, look at me now, doing it now.
It does now.
Always
like
does it in that little
yeah.
place. Oh, that's lovely. Oh, thank you for bringing some photos. I think that's really funny.
What, me doing the cooking?
Well, yeah, that as well.
Sue is keen to know more about how she'd been taken to stay with Dilys's parents, who then went on to adopt her.
I was always told by Mum and Dad that you were able to bring me home to see how a child who hadn't had maternal bonding reacted in an ordinary family environment.
I've always wondered why I was allowed to take you home. I just thought it was a policy that it gave the children in a residential home a bit of family life, you know, a bit of taste of family life. And I just assumed that that's what it was. But I had no idea.
At this time, Eileen had been living in the same care home as her older sister.
You were in a separate unit to Susan. You were with the babies downstairs, and Susan was with me up in the family units. But I used to bring Sue down to visit her baby sister, and I would hold you then, and so that Susan could, you know, pat you and look at you and love you.
No one's ever remembered old me as a tiny baby. No one remembers going back that far, like to me as a tiny baby. So you're the first one I've actually met or spoke to that sort of can remember older me as this tiny baby. And obviously, like I say, we was in different parts. And then obviously I was fostered out from, I don't know how long I was in there for. Do you know? You don't obviously know. No.
I don't.
So.
Sorry.
But I do know that Mum and Dad at the time would have loved for you to have been with me as well, I think.
Yeah.
But of course it wasn't possible.
They did want you, and they did sort of try to get you, if you like, but they were blocked by your father.
Yeah.
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 Because, well, you were his daughter, and that was it.
I don't want to feel that I'm betraying people when I say I feel a bit like jealous because you had a really lovely upbringing and your parents obviously worshipped her. So yeah, I do, but I also got my own brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And I, do you know what I mean? And that's, I don't want to feel that I'm betraying them.
You get upset.
When I sort of say I feel a bit jealous when I see all this.
I was a bit upset when I found out how Eileen's life had panned out compared to Susan's life. But I'm delighted. She seems to have come through it very well indeed.
I would rather have been brought up than you included and grown up to have known Sue as, you know, like growing up to have known each other. That's probably how I would have liked it.
But it means the world to me. Would I have it back in my life? Oops. I know that we'll never lose contact again now. She was the first blood relative that I've ever known, and it's absolutely fantastic for me to have her in my life.
I think it's been amazing meeting my sister after so many years. Yeah, I feel a lot happier now she's in my life. I love her. Yeah, I do.
We have started to become close again after over 50 years, which is absolutely amazing.